Starting your own practice is hard for many chiropractors. It's riddled with both struggles and successes. But here at the Chiropractic Philanthropist, we make it easy by having chiropreneurs and entrepreneurs share their struggles and lessons learned in life and business so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And now here's your host, Dr. Ed Osborne.
All right, TCP listeners, we have an incredible guest today, and that is Justin Martin of, we could say mydynamiciq.com.
Right.
Or Dynamic IQ. I'm excited. I love talking about a couple things, Justin. One thing is I love talking about how we can help grow the profession. But I got to tell you, I love talking about money too.
Yep.
Because I want to help doctors be wildly successful, but I also want to help them keep more of that money and be successful in that fashion too. So why don't you share a little bit about who you are and Dynamic IQ, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. And this is obviously a topic that I love too, and we'll dive into it. But I guess to describe myself and who I am, I'm a financial mentor on a mission. I've consulted and learned from and worked with hundreds of clients around the world, showing them how to live more abundantly.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, my mission at this point is to assist chiropractors and other small business owners really with their financial health. And so that's the direction I've been going. I've been working within this realm of the financial services industry for about a decade and a half now. Learned a lot. I've learned through a lot of hard mistakes too, obviously. But man, there's a lot of good things on the horizon and a lot of opportunities that we can reap from.
And so why was it that, because I've talked to a lot of people who are in the money managing space. This is probably like episode 370 or something.
Right.
TCP. And what is it but no one really niched down to where it's like, look, I want to help doctors. I want to help chiropractors specifically. What was it that attracted you to chiropractors? You show up at all the seminars. I see you guys everywhere.
Right. I think part of it has to do with the fact that I am a believer in chiropractic medicine and what chiropractors are doing. Frankly, I'm a wannabe chiropractor, but I'm a little late in the game being 37 years old. No, and I love where I am. But I see my belief system is, I feel like it's a lot of the same with what my personal chiropractor is and what a lot of my clients are from a health standpoint, spiritual standpoint, family standpoint. I feel like this is my tribe. This is my group of people. But one thing from a financial side that I have found over and over again is a lot of my friends, my clients within the chiropractic industry are amazing people and incredible at what they do. But as a business owner and as a financial professional, a lot of docs are, I don't want to call it too altruistic, but sometimes from a financial side, it's just not working out for them, and their financial health is suffering significantly. From both the side of someone that is still, massively in debt, trying to build their clinic, trying to build their business, as well as the doctor that's making good money, but doesn't know what to do with it now.
Right.
So I think from that standpoint, and it was about 2 or 3 years ago that I finally just transitioned my entire business model, and I moved strictly into the chiropractic space. That's where I am. And that's why you see me at all the different conferences and making presentations, et cetera.
I think we're kind of like chiropractors. We're kind of like a weird crew. So
Yeah.
it's a good space to be in. But and it's a problem that even I had when I was in practice, but I still have the same. It's the funny thing is the same. I have the same problem now that I had when I was busy in practice. And that's like when you are actually starting to earn, what do you do with it and how do you keep it?
Right.
Where should the money go? Intelligently. We look at strategy in our marketing and our business and all these different areas, but do we really look at strategy when it comes to where our money goes?
Right.
So, and let's face it, they don't teach this stuff in school.
Nope.
So one thing we'd love to start these podcasts with too is really just, some words of meaning, a quote, positive affirmations. Do you have something that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Yeah. man, there's always good quotes, and there's always good things that are out there. I guess one good quote that I like, and I recently reread Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey. And
Great book.
if listeners, if you haven't read that book, go and read it. Great book. It's been out for a couple decades, but I recently just read that again. And one quote that stood out this time when I read through it was Steve Covey said, "I am not a product of my circumstances. I'm a product of my decisions." And I think the reason that stood out to me is because I guess let's talk about it from a financial standpoint. Time and time again, when I'm meeting with different doctors, a lot of them that have been in the business for a while all have the same story when it comes to the last recession, financially speaking. It seems like almost everyone was on the brink of bankruptcy or had to go through bankruptcy at that point. All of us got slaughtered at that point. And we're saying, oh, the market dropped and this happened and that happened. Well, that was the circumstance. And we let that circumstance happen to us. So now as we're looking forward, are we going to let that circumstance happen again? Because we know, economically speaking, in the world, something's got to have a correction. I mean, we're very inflated in all aspects of our economies right now. Well, what can we do right now? What decisions can we make right now to position ourselves to have success, to live more abundantly in the future? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about security, right? So how about this? Like, I mean, we always discuss in the show too, and this is we even talked about this even before we started recording today. Is that, look, what is, we need to talk about stories. We need to tell a story here. And for me, I always tell the story of challenge of, how I had to step out of practice and how I had health challenges and things like that. But have you ever had a time where you were faced with incredible struggle, fell flat on your face, and what you learned from that experience and how you apply that either to your life or your business today?
Yeah. I guess two big changes, mental shifts that I've had to have. One was, back in 2007, I was about 4 years out of my undergrad program. I was working as a financial planner. Things were going wonderful. I was buying up rental properties. Things were going wonderfully well. I had two of our four kids were born at that point. And the market hit, the crash of the market hit. And I mean, it was painful. It was painful to watch a lot of my clients lose millions of dollars at that point too. But the interesting part that was painful for me was I walked into work at one point. I was a W-2 employee at that point in my career. And I walked into work one day and there were 600 of us sitting there in this large group meeting. My 401k was down. My IRAs were down. I was, my rental properties were upside down. And it was stressful. We weren't sleeping very much with babies in the house. So there were family issues going on too. And then our employer, the vice president of the company, looked at all of this and he said, so here's the thing, guys. If the S&P 500 isn't above 850 points by the end of this quarter, 15% of you are laid off.
Wow.
And that hit me really hard. And I went, how did I lose complete control of my life, my career, my finances, my marriage, my kids' lives? It was all dependent upon all the external factors, and I had no control over anything. And 5 days later, I quit. I quit because I was only going to do things at that point in time that I could control. So after a lot of long late night discussions with my wife, we just said, okay, next chapter in our lives, what do we do next? And that's when we actually, we were living in Provo, Utah at the time. We packed everything into our little car and we drove down to Houston, Texas.
Wow.
And I enrolled into an MBA program at Texas A&M. And the point of going to grad school, it wasn't so much just to get a degree, but it was to take 2 years to rediscover myself and figure out what were we going to do. So that was, it was a trying time, but coming out of that now, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything in the world. The lessons that I learned, especially during that 2-year discovery period of who I was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, thank you for that. I mean, I think a lot of doctors feel that way too, is like,
right.
Being the employee and being out of control of or having the realization that you don't really have as much security as it feels. Like sometimes we think that it's better to be the employee as a doc, right? Be an employee, that there's more security there. You have less responsibility, which can be true. But the reality is you really don't, you're at the control of someone else, right? You're building someone else's business. Whereas, as a chiropreneur, entrepreneur, we are in control, even though it may not feel like it all the time.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So I'm going to ask you we're going to kind of go off script here. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. So you get on phone calls, I'm sure, with doctors all the time.
Right.
What is the number one thing that you hear as soon as for me, I know what the number one thing is as soon as I get on a call with people, but what is the number one thing that you often hear from doctors? Like the number one challenge that they present the first time you speak to them?
When it comes to money, and again, it depends on their phase of life that they're in, but it's usually, where do I put this money? Like, how am I actually going to be able to step away from my business at some point in time? I can't practice forever, but financially, I don't know how to do it. I own a job. How do I step away? Not that the docs are looking so much to stop practicing, but who out there, what if the docs actually have an exit strategy? Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of the challenge that I see is just there's not a plan in place, and instead of having a plan and going through it and making sure your financial health stays aligned all the time, it's, we're just looking for the bling bling here and there and just buy into whatever it may be, and then cross our fingers, hope and pray that at some point we can, live the lifestyle that we want.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so when's the best time for doctors to actually start putting a plan in place, regardless of where they are? I mean, they could be 5 years out of practice, or they could be 15.
I think having a plan at any point in time is the best time. Yeah. I was just meeting with a doc yesterday. It was my second time that I've met with them. I met them at a conference a while ago, and it's this doctor, we'll call her Dr. Jane, and her husband, meeting with them. They both just got out of graduate school. She just graduated from chiro school. He just graduated with his master's degree in human resource. Well, our conversations around, you guys have $250,000 of student debt, 2 kids and 1 on the way. So what do we do? Do we just kind of say, okay, let's hope that in 5-10 years things are better? No, let's put a plan in place to start figuring out your finances and figuring out your financial health.
You've probably heard of the ChiroKeto.com revolutionary plug-and-play ketogenic lifestyle program. It's the perfect standalone or addition to any office weight loss program. Right now, get $200 off your office sign-up with the discount code TCP2019. Go to ChiroKeto.com now and sign up.
Is that a common thing, though, that you hear with even doctors, is like that they still have the student loan debt? So really what you're doing is looking at, what is the health of their business or their finances right now, and then where should that money be mitigated? Like where should it go?
Yeah. And thankfully, working strictly with chiropractors, the financial situation with chiropractors is pretty similar from one doctor to the next, from one clinic to the next. Because all of you doctors come out of graduate school with the same amount of debt, basically. I mean, there's a lot that goes into becoming a chiropractor, and I get that. So yeah, so we'll sit down and we'll put together a debt pay down strategy. Is it better to pay it down quickly? Do you get pushed out longer? We'll have those conversations. we'll talk about, well, you need to be able to qualify for a small business loan to purchase your clinic, or do you be an associate, or, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's going to depend on that person, where they live, their phase of life. But yeah, I mean, what I have to keep on reminding docs is they're not alone. like be vulnerable, absolutely, and let's talk through it, because finances, for whatever reason, is something that no one really wants to talk about, but we have to have those conversations.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Wow, that's a big one right there. That's a big one. Is that like, well, maybe this is just me, but I hope some other people that are listening, the other doctors that are listening, is like, I literally did not want to hear about it. Like, I didn't want to talk about it. I knew I was making, like, earning. Like, I knew that we had a great business, a great practice. Even now I have a great business, but I didn't ever really want to face someone else will handle that, my accountant. And I remember the one day, sitting down with my accountant, this was years ago when we were just, at the peak in our practice, and they did our taxes, and I sat down. He goes, okay, well, so you're going to need to write a check for 86 grand. And I'm like, I'm like, so what? Because I'd never been in a position where I'd actually had to pay, because I've been, I had so many expenses up to that time, and I had no plan, and I certainly didn't have that cash in the bank. And he's like, so can you just write the check? And I'm like, dude, I understood at that moment that an accountant is not a financial manager. Like, they don't help you.
There's no proactive tax planning there.
There's nothing there. And they have no clear understanding of my business either. And so that changed a lot of things for me right there. And I think that, I'll bet that there's a lot of doctors out there that can resonate with that, is that the tax, the one person that you need to make sure you're paying is the tax man.
Yeah.
But again, you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan, and and you can't it's not guesswork, is it? I mean, it's an actual strategy that needs to be put into place, right? Well, number one, so you can save more, but keep more, but also so you can be prepared if you do have to pay for something, or God forbid you get injured and you can't practice, right?
Right, for sure. And when we look at it, and I guess this is more for the, US docs, is when we're looking at our tax code here in the United States, if you look at our tax code book, it's a 13,000 page book of just junk in there, just one tax code after another. But when you really get down to the nitty gritty that tells you how much taxes do you have to pay, it's just a little sliver. It's less than 5% of that entire book tells you what you have to pay. The rest of the 12,500 pages is everything that you can do to save on taxes. And I think what we miss is we have this fear that Uncle Sam is sitting on our front porch saying, the IRS saying, hey, pay your taxes, pay our taxes. And we forget that there's actually a lot of things that the tax code says you can do to get your taxes down. There is no reason why you, as a doc making a lot of money, should pay at the highest tax bracket. When you look at some of the wealthiest people in the nation, you look at the Clintons, the Trumps, the Romneys, these families, and they're all paying in a 20% tax bracket. Well, is it because they're celebrity status? No, it's because they're using the tax code. And that's what we have to do too. There has to be proactive tax planning in place. So
is it unique to, is there a unique strategy that's used for chiropractors or for doctors versus an entrepreneur in general?
So there's a couple, there are a few different strategies that we can implement for the chiropractors, for the small business owners, that are different for, let's say, a W-2 type of employee. And of course, anything that we talk here isn't a direct recommendation for anyone. There's my upfront advisor disclosure. But there's as a chiropractor, you own your own business. You can open up a SEP IRA, put money in there, and then utilize the tax code to run what's called a backdoor Roth IRA, convert a bunch of money to a Roth IRA, and then you're going to have to pay taxes on converting money. But then we're going to come in and say, well, what alternative investments can we purchase to get you tax deduction? Are there oil wells? Are there conservation easements? Are there different things in the tax code that will let you write down your taxes? Because regardless, you're going to pay that $30,000 either to the IRS, or you can pay that $30,000 by utilizing this backdoor Roth IRA into an investment that'll get you the write down. And now you own the investment. So there's some cool and unique strategies that we can implement, and it'll be a little bit different for everyone, depending on where you are financially in your tax brackets. But there is no reason why anyone should be paying at the top tax bracket. Unless you wait until the last day. If you're reactive instead of proactive, yeah, you're gonna hand the IRS everything that they want.
So again, full transparency, I had to write a big check this year. The difference between this time and the last time is I could write the check. Right. But the thing is, like, I think I want to empower every chiropractor right now so they can actually head over to your website. So it's mydynamiciq.com.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And this is really about, well, first of all, they can opt in. You have an opt-in for a newsletter, but they can also schedule a time to have a consultation with you as well. Right.
Right.
Perfect. Okay. I'm going to challenge every doctor who's listening or an entrepreneur, because I know half of the people that follow me on this page are entrepreneurs, is like, look, you got to become your own CFO. Like you
Absolutely.
you have to become educated on this stuff. Because honestly, like after this year, when I get that bill, I was like, what is the purpose of me making more money if I just have to write bigger checks?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so why should I work my tail off? And honestly, it's really just because I was not prepared. I was prepared, but not prepared. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I hear this story all the time. And here's the crazy thing is it's like those lessons will repeat themselves constantly until you actually act. So yeah. I hope some docs are hearing this. Okay. So here's the next thing I would love to do is really just, dial in. If we could drop, now we already dropped a great resource for docs, but if you could drop a resource, so like a book that all doctors should read, a podcast they could listen to, someone that you follow, anything at all that you think that docs, and I know you actually have a podcast coming out very soon too.
We do. Yeah. You've inspired me. We're going to do it next week. My first episode's launching.
I know it looks great, by the way. I'll probably be one of your first listeners and subscribers. So listen, like, what would you say that all doctors right now, they need to level up and just, they need to consume, they need to soak in one resource?
Yeah. So one resource that a lot of docs already are familiar with is, if you haven't read it yet, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And it's not a, hey, go out and be a real estate investor right now. It's more of a philosophical change in your mind of how your money should work. It's, we are investing in ourselves, we're investing in our businesses, and we are creators and producers. We're not just a W-2 person. I mean, we can be a W-2 person, but we are out there to create and live the mission and the life that we're supposed to. So that is a great read. Another read is going to be the Tony Robbins book, the Money
Matters? No,
no,
it's his latest one, right?
It's his Money Masters.
Okay.
Money Masters.
Nice.
Yeah. And both of those are on Audible. So download it, listen to it at 2.0 speed. I mean, they're both great reads to start to teach you some strategies of how to live more abundantly with your finances. I mean, too often we say to ourselves, and too often I hear people say, I can't afford that. Well, that's a scarcity mentality, right? You can't afford that. Why not? I can afford that if I do X, Y, Z, right? So we have to make sure that we're getting out of this scarcity mindset. We've got to live beyond it, because then we'll start to see the opportunities. We'll start to see the ways to create more wealth, to create more passive income, and live more abundantly. I mean, case in point, I've got a client that I've been working with now for 15 years. Great guy he's out of the Seattle area. He graduated as a middle school band teacher. He just really felt like his purpose in life was to give the power of music to kids ages 6th grade through 8th grade, which anyone that wants to work with that age group of kids, I say, please do, because that is a rough phase of life. It's a stinky phase of life. But he really felt like that's where he was supposed to be. Well, he started there, but the frank discussion that we had was, you will financially struggle making $38,000 a year living in Seattle unless you do something now. And so he started to look beyond being just the middle school band teacher and create other passive forms of income. He now owns about 25 rental properties. He owns an online business that teaches and educates people on how to play a trumpet and a trombone and whatnot. So he's creating different ways to increase money. So we have to do the same. We've got to live that more abundant mindset.
I would agree like 100%. And, you know, here's the crazy thing is, like, when I was in chiropractic, like when I was in practice, I was always waiting. I'm like, oh, I'm going to wait until to get a financial strategy in place for when I hit this level, or next year I'll do it. You know, I'd always put it off. And I think it was maybe just because I was uncomfortable. And here's what I've learned is, now that I'm outside of the chiropractic practice space, but still in the entrepreneurial business space, which they're kind of the same thing. And surrounding myself with people who, you know, were doing 5-10 million a year online, is I found out that they did the exact same thing. Like they had no financial strategy, and it was actually way more common. And so in those kind of masterminds, in those groups, they would actually bring people in to help these other entrepreneurs keep more money, but also have a better financial strategy in place. And I think also because they knew that they could build more loyalty and up-level these people inside of their own programs and get them better success. But yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is, this is not an uncommon problem. I think that we see it in all areas of business. Here's what I'm going to encourage again. Like, it's just like docs. If you're like listening right now, just don't wait. Like,
talk to someone. Call me. Like, talk to someone.
I'm like, because I've done over 400, you know, application calls, like for even my business, right? And one of the first things I always hear from doctors is they're looking at, number one, they're looking for an exit strategy, like you mentioned, right? But they need to be prepared for that. Or number two is they want to create some sort of security.
So
they're looking for security. And they can do that. All they need to do is contact you. So we're going to do one more thing. I'm going to put you actually in our TCP time machine. You ready?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. All right. So here's what it is. We're going to put you in the TCP time machine. We're going to send you back to a younger version of yourself. Okay. This is right after this is when you were with that company, and you just heard that, you know, if they don't hit the, Okay. So it was like right at that time. So you're going to time travel back to that person, and you have all the knowledge and the life experience that you have today. What would you say to that younger self?
Oh man, this is a good one. Just one thing. Whew. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Just move. Just move, produce. Don't wait to be perfect. I think that's also, I mean, that's happening right now in my life too. You know, I am trying to create this movement within the chiropractic space of helping chiros live a better financial life. I've got a few dozen docs that I've been working with for a long time. They're doing great. There's a lot more I can do. And I keep on waiting for XYZ to be perfect before it launches. Before I'm going to launch this podcast, before I'm going to launch this ClickFunnels, before I'm going to launch whatever, it's got to be perfect. So I think that's what I would say to my younger self and myself 6 months ago and myself yesterday. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Just move.
Yeah. You know, the reason I love this conversation today, and part of the reason why I love talking about money, is because, you know, I just feel like doctors, like they deserve, with the value that we provide our communities. You know, they deserve to be rewarded for that financially.
Oh, for sure.
and it's not always, I mean, there's so many people who are investing in how to grow, like to get more lead sales on new patients and conversions and those things, where really they should start thinking about how can I actually just intelligently keep more and have a strategy for that. So this is a really important discussion, and probably not one, the sexiest one that everyone wants to talk about.
Right.
How do I get more new patients, right? But really this could be a life-changing discussion for so many people that are listening. All right, so listeners, you can head over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com. We'll have a webpage dedicated to our discussion with Justin Martin today, and also the links and resources for Dynamic IQ. If you'd like to schedule a call, I'm going to actually drop Justin's email address in the notes. They'll also be on the show notes. So if you're listening on your mobile, you can actually open up your show notes and you'll see the link there, and you can connect with him right there. But otherwise, thank you so much for being on the Chiropractic Philanthropist today. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. I think we should have you back again.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think we should do this again. And just, maybe we'll survey and find out, what are the discussions that we can help doctors with when it comes to money matters.
Yep.
So matters of money.
Yep.
But thank you so much for being on the show and giving back today.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you for having me here.
So you've heard the struggles, you've heard the successes, and this episode is done. But there's still so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive free practice building tips and strategies, including how to market your practice with your very own podcast and so much more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Chiropractic Philanthropist.